Welcome to pre-conference briefing. I'm Lori Lineberry, the conference lay leader. Thank you for joining us today. This year is different. You probably already figured that out. This year, we will not be meeting as a conference in person. This year, we will be doing everything electronic. So where we normally have over 30 hours of conference work and worship, this year we have 8. The only way this works is if we're all prepared before we join conference. That's why attendance at this meeting is absolutely so critical for us all to make sure we have a successful conference. If you have lay alternate members, make sure that they're also informed. So if they have to step in for someone at your church, that they're prepared. If you miss anything, don't worry, because we're recording this pre-conference briefing and it will be posted on the conference website. Also plan on attending Randy Bowman's webinar May 28th at 10, and he'll share more with you on that later on in this pre-conference briefing. With all the changes we've successfully embraced this year, I know we can do this. Thank you for helping change how we have done worshiping in our churches. Thank you for how you've reached out to people during this pandemic time. Thank you for being the church. Thank you for being the church in change and adapting to the world that we live in. So listen, take notes, and let's get ready for Annual Conference 2020. Bishop, are you ready to pray us into session?
Well, I am not your bishop, and I believe he is having technical difficulties. And so we will have him join us in a minute. But I'm going to lead us in prayer. My name is David Wood, and I am a preacher in the South Georgia Annual Conference, and I work with a ministry that does technology. And so we're going to start with a prayer. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, in this time of change and sickness, hear our prayers as we reach out to you. Many of us know people who've been sick. Some of us have lost friends from the virus. Help us as a people of God to make loving, caring, compassionate choices that allow people to feel your love and your strength in this time of need. God, we'd ask that you be with us tonight as we begin the process of preparing for Annual Conference, that you will give us strength and wisdom for this new platform and how our lives are different, but we still have you to rely upon. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. And now we're going to turn our attention to some announcements from Christina.
So I'm going to show you guys how to open a browser while keeping Zoom open, where to find your documents, where you'll be able to watch the live stream if you're not a participant, how people can call in to hear what's going on, and how we're going to be able to vote during the plenary sessions. So as you can see, I'm already running my Zoom app. Some of you are not using a Zoom app. Some of you may be joining us using Zoom online. So if that's the case, you'll need to download the Zoom app first so that everything will be easier for you during the actual plenary session. You'll download the app by visiting zoom.us/download. So to show you how to open up the browser while I'm running my Zoom app, I'm going to go ahead and do that now. You can see down here that on a Mac, I can access Google Chrome or Safari. Either one of those will get me to the internet. On a PC, you would go to your Start menu and launch Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, whatever it is that you use to get to internet stuff. That's what you're going to use to go to www.zoom.us/download. Okay, so notice how you can still see me. Here I am in the Zoom app, and this new window is the internet. So I would click on that, and it would start the download process, and I'd finish going through the steps to finish installing the app. On the day of the clergy session, laity session, and plenary, you're going to get an email reminder from Zoom that looks like it's from DSC Communications. Just like you did today, it'll be an hour before the session starts. You can see here, this is for a different session, but it's the same thing. You'll have to click on the click here to join text that's in blue. That's going to launch an internet page, and it'll get you all started into launching your Zoom app. Now we're going to access annual conference documents. Anything at all having to do with annual conference is going to be at the dscumc.org/AC webpage. By now, you probably already visited this page and were able to download the pre-conference document so that you're ready for today's pre-conference briefing. During the plenary session, laity session, and clergy session, all that stuff's still going to be there. You're still going to be able to access it while you're participating in your Zoom session like I am right now with you guys. So keep your browser open. You could always minimize it or move it over to the side so that you can fully engage in the annual conference session, but be able to access your documents quickly. You could also download them in advance and have them ready or print it out so you have your actual paper. The other thing that you're going to need to do is access the voting site. GNTV is going to cover this later, but this is how we can still run a Zoom session, see who's talking, participate in everything, and keep your voting ballot ready for when it is time to vote. Observers, the way that they're going to be able to watch is either by visiting our website, dscumc.org/AC. They'll be able to watch the embedded live stream right on that site. There's also going to be an 800 number that they can call, and that information is going to be on that same page, www.dscumc.org/AC. We're also going to be live streaming the sessions on Facebook. You'll be able to comment and share the session with your friends, interact with the others on Facebook as much as you like. You've learned how to download and run Zoom, open up an internet browser at the same time so that you can vote or access your documents. You know where to go to find your documents and other updates about annual conference. And you've got information that you can share with your friends, family, or whoever else that might be interested in the business of annual conference.
Thank you very much, Christina. That is great to know. We are now going to begin some introductory explanation of how we will use the Zoom webinar platform. So we're going to start with training on how to ask questions and how you will be recognized to speak during an annual conference session. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what types of people are classified as in Zoom webinar. We have panelists who are making presentations like you're watching today. This will include the bishop and the other leadership of the conference, and it will allow them to speak to you, to show slides and show videos as you've seen we've done today. And then we have attendees. Attendees are there and they view the stream and they're able to interact. And there are several ways that attendees can interact. The ways we're going to be using are the question and answer feature and the raise hand feature. For now, the conference has decided that they are not going to use the chat feature for interaction. And that's just to help the leadership be able to focus clearly and deliberately on the work of the conference. We are going to talk a little bit about the question and answer feature. One of the things that the question and answer feature does is allow you to ask questions. You will see if you move your mouse over your Zoom window on your device that there are icons at the bottom of the screen. One of those says Q&A. Go ahead now and click on that Q&A button and open that up so that you can see where there is a place to enter a question. There you go. We've already had our first question. Go ahead. Feel free to enter a question right now so you can get a feel for how it works. We'd be happy to have each of you do this. These questions come from attendees and not from panelists. These are the attendees who are submitting questions to the panelists. And yes, I think we are having fun. And I don't know what the meaning of life is. You all have some great questions tonight. one of the things that the question and answer feature allows us to do is create a queue of questions that will be made available to the bishop and the panelists who are presenting the business of the annual conference. This will allow them to answer your questions about legislation and issues before the conference without everyone having to ask their question in person. So the one feature we will use in particular with the question and answer feature is asking questions for information. And so if you have an information question, we will ask you to use it there. The next feature we're going to briefly talk about now is the raise hand feature. All of you also have a gray hand that says raise hand in your window. Go ahead and click it now. If you click it once, it turns blue. Once the icon is blue, your hand is raised. This will help us find you quickly if you are recognized to speak by the bishop. And so the goal will be that this raise hand feature is to facilitate you being allowed to speak in a quick and effective manner. If we were to allow you to speak, you would get a prompt on your screen that says unmute myself. That unmute myself option will appear in a small box like this on your Zoom window. The other features we will talk about later. And now, I think we might go back and have Bishop Bob give us a greeting for the evening.
Thank you, David. I appreciate this opportunity to greet everyone. This is meant to be not only our usual pre-conference briefing, but also a practice session for a most unusual annual conference. I want to say how much I appreciate your willingness to work with us in the midst of these changes that we're experiencing across our world and certainly in our Desert Southwest Conference. To be able to connect this way and to do the essential business of our annual conference is nothing short than a miracle indeed. So thank you for all of our folks at GNTV and our own communication staff for making this possible. This year, our annual conference theme is pretty relevant for such a time as this. When we first decided on this theme, we didn't have a pandemic in mind as being something that would change our lives dramatically for this time. But we did have a sense that we were in an unusually creative time of our lives in which our faith needed to be deep down inside and up front in terms of how we feel and then how we act. And so annual conference was meant to be an opportunity to look at who we are anew with fresh eyes for such a time as we were in. So now that we are in the throes of the pandemic, we are learning many new things about who we are. And so the scripture passage that will inspire us for our annual conference is a very familiar one to many of us from Ecclesiastes. And so you will hear this. It is a time for every purpose under heaven. Ecclesiastes will guide us and direct us as we move forward, even in our shortened and very different time at annual conference. It is a time to remember that in all moments of our lives, God is present with us, guiding us, directing us, and helping us to become the church that God intended us to be and called us to be a part of. So, welcome to this time together, and we look forward to seeing you at annual conference this year. Blessings to all.
And now we're going to go to Randy Bowman to learn more about the budget and finance of the annual conference.
Thank you, David. I first want to mention to everybody that, as Lori indicated, we have a webinar on Thursday morning from 10 to 11:30 where I'll go into more detail, allow you to ask questions on all of the financial and administrative recommendations that will be coming before annual conference for vote this year. Tonight, I'm just going to give you an overview, highlight them. So if you have any questions that pop into mind between now and Thursday, feel free to bring them to the webinar on Thursday morning, or if you want, you can email me in advance and I'll make sure that I address them. There are 5 areas that you'll be having recommendations come to you for vote. Some of these will be recommended to come to you for a vote on a consent calendar, and our conference secretary, Jen Lambert, is going to go into that process in a little bit more detail shortly after I'm done. And some of them will be full discussion in the plenary right from the get-go. I'm going to start with 4 recommendations that come from the Conference Council on Finance and Administration. The first of those is probably the most significant. It is the recommendation for the 2021 apportioned budget. It was a particularly challenging task to develop the budget this year. We initially reached out to all of our ministry areas and asked what they thought they needed in order to do the ministry they felt called to do. Those were essentially, we kind of need what we had this past year or what we have for 2020. Then we took a look at the statistical tables that all the churches submitted, and we see 2018 versus 2019, that there's a 7% decrease in membership, a 4% decrease in attendance, a 5% decrease in local church expenditures. So it didn't seem wise to propose a budget that was the same. So we felt like we needed to reduce it. This was a little bit more challenging because historically we have budgeted, assuming we're going to receive about 86% of apportionments. And so that's the portion of the budget that all the areas were allowed to spend. This year, CFA decided that we probably needed to budget at 75%. We collected 79% last year in 2019. And even though we didn't expect COVID-19 pandemic, that's actually reduced it a little bit below even the 75% level, although I have to say I am deeply moved by what I see as still a strong commitment to apportionments by the vast majority of our churches. And the one other factor is the general church is, of course, seeing a decline in apportionments. And one area in particular is in the Episcopal Fund, so they cut their funding for the conference for that. So we had to deal with an increase, a shift of the cost from the general church to the conference apportionment budget for that. So how do you achieve a 5% budget decrease while increasing the Episcopal Fund and while increasing the expected portion of apportionments that we don't think we're going to collect from 14% to 25%? It ended up being pretty much a cut across the board. There are some areas you'll notice that have more significant reductions than others. New faith communities, pension and health benefits had some designated funds that were generating pretty good earnings up until the start of this year. But we tried to shift some funding from there, but we'll go through that in detail on Thursday morning, but you'll see that pretty much every area other than the Episcopal Fund has some reductions, and we were able to get the bottom line of a reduction proposed budget of 5.21% from 2020, while basing it on apportionment collections of 75% rather than 86%. So we're trying to be sensitive to what's happening in the local church. And if we need to adjust our spending, CFA looks at this every month. even below the budget, we'll do what we have to do, as all of the churches are doing as well. So I lift that one up to you in particular out of the CFA recommendations. If you have any questions on any particular lines and you want to know beforehand, email me. Otherwise, we'll be happy to address your questions on Thursday morning's webinar. The other three recommendations from CFA are more ordinary. Recommendation 2 is the special days and causes, which are the same as last year, the special Sundays, etc., where some churches give every month along with apportionment. Some choose those that are important to them and take special offerings and remit what they collect. Some do nothing, but this lifts up the same opportunities and kind of suggested overall conference goals. The special Sundays and target amounts are exactly the same as last year. Recommendation 3 are the listing of the conference advance and benevolent specials. These will allow churches to give to these without these organizations going through any sort of special approval by CFA. They are 98% the same as last year. There's been a couple that have been added, but it just allows through the apportionment system for gifts to come in for any of those ministries that we support. And recommendation 4 is also the same as last year. It does things like sets the level 1 compensation, which is the district superintendents, director of New and Vital Faith, the DCM, myself. It's proposed by CFA to be kept the same as last year. It also deals with annual conference reimbursement rates for mileage, that sort of thing. All of these are exactly the same as last year. So those are the 4 CFA recommendations. The Commission on Equitable Compensation will be having one recommendation. It is the minimum compensation schedule. It is no change from last year in terms of the rate. The one change is, you may remember that last year we increased for the first time the service years from 20 years, where it was capped at the year before, to 40 years. This year, equitable comp, because we heard back from a number of churches that was onerous on some of their budgets, kind of struck a balance in the middle, and they are proposing that although the amounts remain the same for the service years, that the schedule stop at years 30. So that's halfway between 20, which it used to be, and 40, which is what it is for 2020. So I lift that one up to you as well, and that will be available for discussion at our webinar and also in the plenary session. The Conference Board of Pension and Health Benefits also is going to be having 4 recommendations. 3 of these are what I have historically seemed to be pretty routine. Recommendation 1 is sets the past service rate for those clergy that are receiving retirement benefits with service prior to 1982, the pre-82 plan. And we try to keep that at 1% of the conference average compensation. So the recommendation is that they receive $714 per year of service in that plan. That's up from $702 this year, and it's just equivalent to the same shift in the conference average compensation. That historically has not generated much discussion and been approved pretty routinely. Recommendation 2 allows for up to 100% of pension or disability benefits for retired or disabled clergy to be treated as a housing allowance depending on what their actual costs are. And that historically has been a pretty routine approval as well. Recommendation 3 keeps the billing for the current CRSP pension plan at 13% of compensation. And that's no change from this year. And then recommendation 4 is the approval for the billing for health insurance. The change there, it's still going to be through HealthFlex. It's still going to be the same 6 plans. The recommendation that Westpath made to the Conference Board of Pension Health Benefits and that we went with and notified all of the participants in the letter from myself and Mickey Price early in March is that the provider network be switched from United Healthcare to Blue Cross Blue Shield. Westpath did the analysis of all our participants and found that the doctors that were currently being utilized were ranged from like 96 to 100% coverage. You know, if they were in United Healthcare, they were in Blue Cross Blue Shield. Their feedback in customer satisfaction is greater in Blue Cross Blue Shield than it is in United Healthcare. They have about twice as many participants in Blue Cross Blue Shield as they do through United Healthcare. And most importantly to the Conference Board of Pension Health Benefits was it allowed us to reduce costs. These rates are 5% less than the 2020 rates with United Healthcare. Had we stayed with United Healthcare, they would have increased by 2% rather than decreased by 5%. So those are the 4 recommendations from the Conference Board of Pension Health Benefits. The Conference Board of Trustees is having 1 recommendation, and that is for the new quadrennium of 2021 to 2024 that we provide our property and liability and workers' comp, everything other than health insurance coverage through a master plan with Brotherhood Mutual rather than Church Mutual. We've been with Church Mutual for nearly 25 years and we're inclined to stay with them, but they, as you probably noticed, increased their premiums by 10% for 2020 and couldn't commit to what 2021 rates would be until December of this year. So Conference Board of Trustees felt like we needed to go out to bid. Got a very competitive bid from Brotherhood Mutual. It's pretty much the same as what Church Mutual is right now without factoring in whatever increase they might have put in place for 2021. The workers' compensation rates seem to be about 25% less. They have greater coverage in some areas, higher maximums. And one other important factor is they have an agent that will serve all of our churches. Right now, our Nevada churches are served through an agency out of California, and our Arizona churches deal directly with Church Mutual Home Office. With Brotherhood Mutual, we will deal with one agent in Arizona for claims, for certificates of insurance, questions, presentations, training. So we think we'll have better service, lower cost, and greater coverage. So that's the 1 recommendation coming from the Conference Board of Trustees. And then lastly, the Personnel Committee is going to be offering 2 recommendations as they do every year. These are the salary ranges for exempt employees and the wage ranges for non-exempt employees. They are being kept, recommended to be staying the same as the current 2020 rates. Inflation was probably closer to 2%, but again, focusing on the financial challenges that many of our churches are facing, they felt like would be no change. They would be better off recommending no change in the ranges. This does not set the rates that they are paid next year, but it does set the ranges within which they must fit. So those are the 5 areas that will go into more detail on Thursday morning. And so again, come with your questions or email me in advance. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Billie Fidlin, who's going to talk about the mission project.
Thank you so much, Randy. As Randy said, I am Billie Fidlin, Director of Outreach and Justice for the conference. As you may know, our conference mission project is Water for the Navajo Nation, covering some 27,000 square miles. There are approximately 173 Navajo people living on the reservation, of which about 30% or 52,000 nation members have no running water. This makes it extraordinarily difficult to wash hands and sanitize homes to fight the virus. And the Navajo have paid the price. Currently, they are experiencing the highest rates of infection per capita in the United States. People are sick. People are dying. And the simple gift of water can and will save lives. Our conference is working with the Navajo COVID-19 Command Center, Navajo Department of Justice. And it is under their direction that the water will be purchased and distributed to where it is needed most. This is an emergency humanitarian aid effort, and it will save lives. Your giving heart will save lives. Churches and individuals can donate through the conference website by clicking on the Mission Project box on the homepage. Be sure to indicate your church and that the donation is for the Mission Project. Thank you.
Okay, it's time for us to do some voting practice. This is the part where we start to get down to the business of annual conference and we work on our voting skills. Voting is going to be done through a secure web page online that has been set up by GNTV. It is not part of Zoom. As Christina explained earlier, you will have to open a separate web browser, or you will need to have a second device like a cell phone or a tablet to facilitate your voting. You are going to vote by going to our web page. That web page can be entered just like you see it on the screen. It is vote.gntv.info. I will give you all a second to start that process. Find a web browser on your computer and vote.gntv.info. We're going to go over this several times, so I'm going to move ahead, but we will have this destination back up on the screen in just a minute. What you need to vote will be a unique 6-digit voter ID. Today, we are all sharing one voter ID for practice, but in the days leading up to annual conference, you will get an email from GNTV and the Desert Southwest Conference that will provide you with your 6-digit voting ID. This is unique to you. It should not be shared. It should not be passed along to an alternate delegate if you will not be attending. Every delegate and alternate delegate will get their own 6-digit voter ID. You will also need to know the ballot code each time we vote. The bishop, when he is leading us through the voting, will share with you the ballot code for that vote. It will also be seen on the screen. Remember for me that ballot codes are case sensitive. We are going to be using all lowercase letters. And if you are using a cell phone or a tablet, it may auto-capitalize the first letter, and you will want to hit the shift button to make it a lowercase letter. So get your web browser ready, whether it is on your computer or a second device. We're going to run through the voting steps quickly, and then we're going to review them again. So don't worry if you miss one the first time. So you go to vote.gntv.info and you load the web page. On that page, you will see a box where you enter the ballot code, and it has a green load ballot button. If you are seeing that page, you have made it to the right place, but you still have time, so no rush. Then you will enter your ballot code, you will click the green button, and then you will enter your voter ID. We're going to give you a voter ID when it comes time to vote here in just a minute. You will then click the blue Submit button, and then you will click a green Return to Start button. Let's take a quick look at this video that's going to run us through the steps another time and show you some visual images on what things will look like.
Welcome to the online balloting system, coordinated by GNTV Media Ministry. Each of you should have received a 6-digit voter ID number in your email inbox. Please have that number available and convenient during the balloting process to help expedite our work. You may also wish to have a second device available for casting your ballot, such as a smartphone or tablet. To begin your ballot, please open a web browser on your computer, tablet, or smartphone and go to vote.gntv.info. If you have one available, it is recommended to use a second device other than the one you are viewing the Zoom broadcast on to allow you to follow the on-screen prompts shown in Zoom during the voting process. When prompted by the moderator, please enter the ballot code for this ballot that is announced and shown in red on your screen in Zoom. Please note the ballot code is case sensitive and must be entered exactly as shown on screen. After entering the ballot code, please click the green Load Ballot button. When prompted by the moderator, please enter your voter ID number and make your selection on the ballot. After filling out your ballot, please click the blue Submit button located at the bottom of the ballot. After submitting your ballot, you will receive a message letting you know your vote has been recorded. Please then click the green Return to Start button located at the top or bottom of your page to prepare your browser for the next ballot.
We are just about ready to start our first practice ballot tonight. Before we do that, there are a couple ways for you to get help if you need additional assistance during this process. You can click the yellow Help Me button on the voting webpage, and it will take you to a help page that has the steps for voting and some suggested tips that you can look at and use to assist you. If that is not answering your questions, we are available by call or text at the phone number on the screen. You may want to write this down, but it will be shared with you again in pre-conference communications and be available throughout the voting process by clicking on the Help Me button. So we are just about ready to start voting. I want to remind you that GNTV is happy to help you as we work through the voting process. It is now time for our first ballot. When we start a ballot, you will see a slide on screen that looks very similar to what you see here tonight. We are going to work through voting as a group. We are going to vote tonight to see if you are enjoying quarantine. Please open your web browser on your computer, tablet, or smartphone and go to vote.gntv.info. That is in blue on your screen. That is vote.gntv.info. That is all you have to type. No additional letters or documentation. Next, you will enter the ballot code when that page loads. There is a box where you will enter our ballot code. Our ballot code for this first practice vote is lowercase DSC401. That is DSC401. It is shown on red on your screen. Tonight, we are all voting with the same voter ID, so we are not collecting any individual information, and there are no results that will document how you voted. When we get to annual conference, you will each have your own unique voter ID so that everyone has one vote and only one vote. So tonight, after you load the ballot, you are going to enter where it says your answer on that next screen, the voter ID. That voter ID is in yellow and is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Once again, it is on your screen in yellow in the Zoom webinar, and that voter ID is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Now it is time to make your choice on how you would like to vote. Are you enjoying social distancing? Please choose yes or no. If you submit your ballot without making a choice, no vote is recorded. You may submit your ballots now, and by doing that, by clicking the blue Submit button. Once you have completed the voting process, click the Return to Start button that is green at the top or bottom of the page. This will prepare you for the next vote. During an actual vote, if you made a mistake and voted the wrong way, you would have the ability to go back through the voting process and change your vote. Our system will tabulate the last reported vote for your unique voter ID. But tonight, since we are all sharing a voter ID, there is no way to change your vote. We're going to give you 30 seconds to work through this. Feel free to reach out to our help phone number or ask a question. Okay, we are working through the process. We are preparing to close the ballot, but I know that some of you may still be working on this. We're going to do several practice votes tonight, and we will work through this, and then we will have additional training sessions where we will be able to work with you one-on-one. If you need help, please feel free to call us at this number, as a couple of you have already done tonight. The number is 478-216-7709. We're going to go ahead and close this ballot and tabulate our results. But for those of you who are having trouble getting connected, you can continue to reach out to us. Some of you have asked questions, and we are working on answering those. Others have called us. Please know that there will be additional training sessions where we will work with you to get you connected. The one thing I want to point out tonight is that the voter IDs for annual conference will be unique to each of you. That allows us to only have authorized individuals who can vote. If you are a delegate and you are not able to attend and your alternate gets to vote, your voter ID will be disabled as the original delegate, and the alternate voter ID will be enabled for that voting. Do not share your ID. If you share your voter ID with someone else and they vote, it will cancel out your vote. The system records the last submitted vote for each voter ID. And so that allows us to make sure that everyone can only vote once. So we are working on our final tabulation. I know a few of you are still working. We are going to do another practice ballot here in just a second. So once again, that phone number to call if you need assistance is 478-216-7709. Yes, there's one question I want to answer for everybody. People can vote on the same device. Individuals who are sharing a computer can each go through the voting process. Each vote will be recorded individually because it is tied to your unique voter ID. And so now we have the results from our first ballot. Let's see those on the screen. So 87 of you are enjoying social distancing. 172 of you are not enjoying social distancing, and 29 of you chose to abstain from the question. I appreciate you working on those answers. We are now going to move ahead, and we are going to do our second practice ballot. Our second practice ballot tonight is going to be about a very important question. Do you have pets? We are curious to know how many United Methodists have pets. We want you to vote and let us know. So we will start the process again by opening a web browser and going to vote.gntv.info, which is shown in blue on your screen. That's vote.gntv.info. Then you will enter the ballot code DSC402. That is ballot code DSC402. Then you will hit load ballot. After the ballot loads, you will enter your voter ID in the area that says your answer. That voter ID is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and it can be seen in yellow on your screen. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. And remember, that is the same for everyone tonight. After you've entered your voter ID, please tell us if you have pets. After you've entered the information and you've made your choice, if you're happy with your choice, please click the blue Submit button to cast your ballot. Remember, if you've made a mistake, you can change your vote by doing the full process again. We're going to give you about 30 seconds to work through the voting process. We have now worked through our voting process and we are preparing to close the ballot. I see less people have asked questions, and I see that we have not had calls to our tech support number. That information is available to you. If you have any questions, we are happy to help. I'm going to declare this ballot closed. And now we're going to hear a short message from Christina about the translation options that are available for annual conference.
In the meantime, let's review a really cool feature available both in this pre-conference briefing and the upcoming sessions for annual conference. Once GNTV turns it on, we'll have an icon at the bottom that's called interpretation. you'll see that we have both Spanish and Korean interpretation available. I don't recommend that you press those now unless you understand Spanish or Korean. Otherwise, you won't understand the rest of what I'm saying. Just know that it's available for those participants that prefer to listen to the session or participate in this session listening to Spanish or Korean. Some of you may have already heard that we will have the call-in feature available for this session and the upcoming Zoom webinar sessions for annual conference. So you might be wondering if interpretation is available for those. That's a great question, and I have to admit, it's a question that I have as well. Just like you guys, doing annual conference online is new to us too. So feel free to call in on another webinar session and see if the interpretation feature is available through the call-in method, and let your Spanish speakers or Korean speaking friends know that they'll be able to or not be able to listen in on annual conference sessions this year over the phone.
We are now waiting on our tabulation results, and those should be ready momentarily. I want to remind you to make a note of the phone number. That phone number for tech support is 478-216-7709. And you can also learn more at the voting website, which is vote.gntv.info/help, or if you just go to the vote.gntv.info, you can click the yellow Help Me button, and it will take you to the videos you can watch, and those videos will help explain the process to you, and there is even a sample ballot you can do on your own. So let's go ahead and see the results of the last ballot. So on this one, we just went with straight numbers. We have 180 of you that do have pets, 102 of you that don't have pets, and 6 of you that abstained. Thank you for voting. Now we're going to toss it over to Jen Lambert and hear more about resolutions and rule changes.
Thanks, David. It's good to be with you all this evening in this new and different way. And while we'll be meeting differently for our annual conference, there's still a great deal of business that's essential for us to cover. There are 4 categories of business which require voting, and as was explained, voting will take place through GNTV's support. So I want to go through the 4 different categories for you. The first is the consent calendar. As Lori mentioned at the beginning of our webinar, our time together has been reduced from 30 hours to 8 hours. So to expedite plenary sessions at annual conference and to reserve time for matters that need to be discussed in more detail, our conference rules allow us to have a section on our annual conference agenda labeled as the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are generally non-controversial items that don't require much, if any, discussion. The consent calendar allows the annual conference voting members to group items together under one heading and decide them at one time. If the consent calendar is approved by a simple majority of voting members, then all items on the consent calendar are approved. Our conference rules have a procedure for removing an item from the consent calendar for separate discussion. This can be done by a vote of 30 or more voting members of annual conference. Removal of an item from the consent calendar enables the item to be considered and voted upon separately if discussion is needed. The items that we have grouped together on the consent calendar are provided for you on the screen, and we'll review those again with Randy's webinar, and they'll also be available for you to review on the conference website. The second type of recommendations for consideration that require votes are items that we will vote on individually, and those are the Council on Finance and Administration recommendation, the Commission on Equitable Compensation, the Conference Board of Pension and Health Benefits recommendation, the Board of Trustees recommendation, the Personnel Committee recommendations 1 and 2, and the conference nominations report. Each of those items will be voted on separately using the amazing technology that we have available. I will confess to you that I will not miss hand counting ballots this year. Thankful to GNTV for that. The third area that we'll address with voting has to do with the election of new bishops. Since the Western Jurisdiction Conference has been postponed, and that is the place where new bishops are elected for the jurisdiction, I will ask the question, shall the conference secretary distribute forms for the nomination of Episcopal candidates to the lay and clergy members of next year's annual conference, provided there is to be an Episcopal election. This vote is simply to allow us to distribute the forms at the 2021 annual conference. A majority of the valid ballots cast will enable us to be prepared for an Episcopal election at the next regular session of annual conference in June 2021. Finally, if time permits, the final legislation will be presented for consideration. There are 4 things. Petition concerning the treatment of asylees and refugees, petition concerning the treatment of immigrants, resolution concerning the treatment of asylees and refugees, and resolution concerning the treatment of immigrants. If time does not allow for this legislation could be referred to the Covenant Council by a motion and majority vote. We will see how things go as we try this new way of conducting annual conference. That's all I have for you this evening. I'm going to kick it back over to David.
Thank you, Jen. We're now going to have a short video presentation from Trinity about how to make a motion at this year's annual conference.
Greetings, and thank you for watching this pre-conference briefing to learn more about how annual conference will be different this year. My name is Trinity Donovan, and I'm the legislative coordinator for our conference. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how legislation will happen while we're online. So if you are interested in making a motion, you will use the Q&A box and type in motion and then what your motion is. The bishop will recognize those who have used the Q&A box. And so once you are recognized by the bishop, you will use the raise your hand feature on Zoom, which is similar to going to the microphone to be able to start speaking. Once you have typed into the Q&A box and been recognized by the bishop and then raised your hand through Zoom, you will then have the opportunity to speak. So there you'll be able to make your motion to the body. We will then need a second from another member of our annual conference to say they are seconding the motion through the Q&A box again. Once that motion is seconded, the motion maker will have the opportunity to then speak on their motion. Let's say as you've heard someone's motion, you are interested in making an amendment. This would be a similar process through the Q&A box. And so in the Q&A box, you would type amendment, and then you would type the language of the amendment that you would like to see. And there is one thing to note as we're using the Q&A feature. It can take a character limit of about 1,000 characters, which is a small, short paragraph. If your motion or amendment is going to be longer than that, you'll need to email me the entirety of that motion or amendment. My email address is trinityd@gmail.com, TRINITYD as in Donovan @gmail.com. And in addition to emailing me the full motion or amendment, please write motion or amendment in the Q&A box with a short summary and that you've emailed the full language to my email address. Again, then once you are recognized by the bishop, after you have written that amendment in the Q&A box, you will raise your hand through the raise your hand feature and have the opportunity to speak what your amendment is. We will need a second from another member of the body who will use the Q&A box to type second and then the amendment. And then the amendment maker will have the opportunity to speak on their amendment. We also will still have the opportunity to hear conversation from people both for and against the motion or the amendment or whatever action is at hand. And in that case, once the bishop calls for people who would like to speak for or against a motion, you'll have the opportunity to raise your hand if you'd like to be recognized to speak. When the bishop recognizes you, then you will have that opportunity to speak. There are times when typically we'd like to hear an equal number of conversations from for and against. And so in that instance, those who had raised their hands, a first person will get to speak. And then likely all of those people who've raised their hands will be cleared because we will want to hear the opposing side for another consideration and the opposing side to speak. So those who want to speak in the opposite side of what the person previous said will raise their hands again to be recognized. You may also want to call the question or do a point of order, and those would also be covered under the question and answer box. And so they're just like you may have typed motion or second or amendment, you would type call the question or point of order and then describe what that is, and then wait to be called on by the bishop to move forward with that request. And now I'd like to turn it over to GNTV for us to practice making motions and seconding through the Zoom application.
Thank you, Trinity. We are now going to just walk through what she has explained to us briefly and give you all the opportunity to use the question and answer feature in this way. So, the question and answer feature can be used to make motions, amendments, call the question, offer a second, make a point of order, or request a moment of personal privilege, similar to what you do by raising your hand and being recognized by the bishop at a typical annual conference. The way this works is by opening the question and answer window, which many of you have found and used very effectively tonight, and then you start your statement by using one of those key words: motion, amendment, second, call the question, or others. You would type this in and put a colon, and then if you're making an amendment, for an example, you would type the word amendment and put a colon, and then type in your amendment. As Trinity indicated, there's a character limit of about 1,000 characters, so keep that in mind if you have a longer amendment. You can also do things like call the question, point of order, or moment of personal privilege. I would be happy for any of you that would like to now use the question and answer feature and submit a test request. We are just treating these as test requests tonight. These items will be collected by moderators, and then they will be gathered together and presented in a way for the bishop to follow what is being asked as the logical flow of the business session progresses. So, one further note about the way to submit long amendments. If you have a long amendment, you have to email that to Trinity, and that's trinityd@gmail.com. This is the same email address that has been used in the past, and so you will be able to submit longer amendments to that Gmail address. Once you've made your motion, your request for point of order, that goes into the queue for the bishop. If the bishop recognizes you, then that is when we will ask you to use the raise hand feature. We are asking you to use the raise hand feature to be officially recognized. So when the bishop says your name, you click the gray raise hand button, which will turn blue. Leave it blue, and GNTV then will work with you to enable your microphone. You will get a prompt on your screen that says unmute myself. So go ahead now, feel free to click the raise hand button for everyone who is participating in tonight's call. I would love to see all 340 of you click the raise hand button now so that we can make sure you all have found it. This is an easy way to get recognized so we can turn your mic on and then allow you to speak. After you click the raise hand feature and you're recognized by the bishop, you will get the prompt on the screen that asks you to unmute yourself. You have to click the unmute myself button in order to be able to speak and address the conference. We cannot turn your microphone on remotely. I appreciate you all clicking the raise hand button. We are now going to move on to one further practice question for tonight. We are going to do ballot number 4. It is going to be another great question for you tonight. The question for tonight is, what is your favorite color? And so we are going to start through the voting process as we have done before. It is ballot code DSC404. You will go to vote.gntv.info, that is in blue on your screen. And the question is, what is your favorite color? After you enter the ballot code on that first page, which is DSC404, you will then click the load ballot button, and that will take you onto the ballot page where you will enter your voter ID. We are all using the same voter ID tonight. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and that can be seen in yellow on your screen. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Please enter that now and make your choice on what is your favorite color. We're going to allow 30 seconds now for you to work through making your vote. We are preparing to close the ballot now, and we are going to declare the ballot closed. We are going to hear a little more from Christina now about preparation and training dates where you can learn more about voting, and we will have extra opportunities for everyone to practice and learn how the systems for annual conference will work.
How are you guys doing? For many of you, Zoom today is your very first time doing anything like this. Some of you have created an email address for the first time just so that you can join us. We are super grateful for you, for all the anxiety that you've had to go through to prepare for this. Know that we're there with you. We're trying to work out the kinks. We're going to have 2 more practice sessions, one on June 1st at 5 p.m. and the second one will be June 9th at noon. If any of your annual conference voting delegates or alternates weren't able to participate in today's pre-conference briefing, they'll be able to watch it online. This is a new experience for all of us, and we want to make sure that you are very comfortable to have a voice, to fully participate. And you can register for those by visiting www.dscumc.org/AC. Look for the blue buttons. You'll see a register button June 1st at 5 p.m. and the other one is June 9th at noon. If your delegates miss today's pre-conference briefing, they can watch the recording, which will be linked on that page, and then they'll get their live practice at either one of those practice sessions. And if after today's session, you're still a little uncomfortable or just want to make sure that you nailed it, be sure to register for those practice sessions and give it another shot. Let's find out what the voting results are.
So those practice sessions are June 1st at 5 p.m. and June 9th at noon. Please make a note of those. We can work with you between now and then to get ready for those if you are continuing to have problems, and we are ready to see the results. It looks like blue is overwhelmingly your favorite color, followed closely by purple. I did hear that a few of you were not able to find your favorite color, and I am sorry that we did not provide a complete listing of all the available colors. I appreciate you helping us through these practice sessions tonight. We will have further opportunities to work with you and to help you make sure it is working for you as part of the voting process. We are now going to hear a little bit about the laity session.
Wow, I hope that practice helped you see how the motions and voting were going to progress at conference. The laity session is scheduled for Friday, June 12th from 1 to 4. We planned on 3 hours because we were expecting a vote for a new conference lay leader this year. Unfortunately, no candidate stepped up for this position. So for the next year, we all need to be searching out effective and passionate laity that could serve as a leader for the laity of the conference. We'll hold an election at annual conference in 2020-21. In the meantime, I will be staying on for the next year. Because there'll be no election, we probably won't need the full 3 hours we have scheduled for the laity session. Since laity session and clergy session will not be running concurrently this year, and since there will be no voting in laity session, you clergy who have previously expressed a desire to join us in laity session, well, you have an opportunity to do that this year. The bishop will be welcoming us and then join me in some conversation. I'm looking forward to that time together. We have a special guest who will be joining us to lift us up, to energize us and empower us with possibilities. Gwen Bortner will be joining us from the California-Nevada Annual Conference. Gwen, are you ready?
Everything is different. On Easter, churches around the world sat empty instead of having one of their highest attended services of the year. General Conference has been postponed for over a year, leaving so many questions and concerns unanswered and unaddressed. And annual conferences throughout the United States are figuring out how to do annual conference virtually. But change, it can be a good thing. Worship services are more accessible to more people than possibly any other time in history. Our global church is focused on our shared mission of service and caring for others instead of our differences in theology and polity. And the laity session of your annual conference, it can be enjoyed from the comfort of your own home. Hi, I'm Gwen Bortner, lay member of the California-Nevada Annual Conference and currently the project manager for the Western Jurisdiction of the United Methodist Church. I invite you to join me on June 12th for the Desert Southwest Laity Session, a workshop entitled The Journey of Change, where we as laity will explore what it is to be laity in such a time as this, when everything is different and change is all around us. Because when change is forced upon us, there are only two options: to come out the other side better or worse, because there is no staying the same. And I don't know about you, but I want to come out better, because I know when I come out better, everything I touch and do and am involved with comes out that much better as well. I promise you a time of inspiration, introspection, reflection, and for those of you willing to lean into the change and commit, an opportunity for growth, revitalization, and joy. I hope you'll join me.
You've had an opportunity now to get just a little taste of what we are hoping will happen at annual conference. You will hear over and over again that this is a conference like we've never had before. But this has been the theme in the last number of weeks, that in local churches, certainly in the conference level, we've been experiencing church like we've never experienced it before. And although we have some issues with the way we used to do church that we miss so much, we also have discovered that with the help of modern technology and ingenuity and the creative spirit of God with us, that we have been able to find new ways of doing some important things for the church and for God. Our discipleship, believing and following Jesus Christ, has not had a vacation in this time. In fact, we've discovered how deeply moving faith can be when we are faced with the necessity of making changes and doing things in a refreshing way. I'm going to ask you, as you prepare for what's coming up at annual conference, to be patient with the newness of everything. Be patient as you experienced when I tried to get on this webinar. I had my own difficulties, and thank goodness we have tech people who are willing to help us through this. This is what GNTV and our communication staff are so generously offering to us. But in order to get us through, you and I need to continue to be patient. You remember a couple of annual conferences ago, we had this exercise where we just sort of breathed in and then breathed out. And that has been a part of our preparation for meditation and prayer and focus on God. We're going to have to do that. And the good thing is that nobody's going to be watching you this time around. You're going to be in your place watching your screen, but we're all going to be called to breathe in God's Spirit wherever we are, and to breathe out the spirit of love and grace, and in this case, patience for what is to come next. We've got a couple important things that we want you to be prepared for. Be sure to take a look at the material that we have posted in order to prepare you to read through the documents, read through the reports, see the budget as it's being presented, look at what is coming down the pike in terms of what we are asking you to consider for this annual conference. Be ready to participate in Randy's next webinar, which we hope will be an inspirational as well as informative time for you on May 28th, this coming Thursday at 10 a.m. We also have, as you've heard, some practice sessions for us. I'll probably want to be on that because I need a lot of practice too, because presiding at this annual conference will be unlike I have ever done before. But we're in this together, friends, and there are so many people who are going to be helping to make this a successful annual conference. And we may bumble a little bit, we may stumble a little bit through the technical part, but let's not forget that the Spirit of God will be with us, connecting us in ways that we have never imagined before. And for that, we will be eternally grateful. And this technology, this spirit, this cooperation, this connection is made for us in the Desert Southwest Conference for such a time as this. Friends, be safe, stay healthy, keep aware of the presence of God, even in the midst of the difficult moments we have. And if I may I call us all together for a word of prayer as we conclude this time of the pre-conference briefing. Let's pray together. Gracious God, our loving Creator, help us to keep mindful of the miracle of technology that is ours, to explore and to learn, to struggle with, yes, but to utilize as a way of connecting us. We thank you for all those who are helping to make this annual conference a reality, and we ask that your Spirit would abide with each one of us as we now open ourselves to learning and preparing for this annual conference in a new way. Thank you for all who have made their efforts to put together this pre-conference briefing. Guide us even into the future as we prepare even more. And in all times, make your presence known to us. Bless those who are this day struggling mightily with the coronavirus pandemic. Help us as we strive to be pastors and caregivers and Christ followers, even in the midst of this difficult moment. For you are our God, and you call us for this moment. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.